evening, and welcome to another episode of The Turning Point, powered by U-Turn Youth Consulting. I have the pleasure and privilege of being your host. My name is Shirley Clanton, and at U-Turn, our mission is to unmask the backstories that contribute to youth and gun violence while also looking at the systems that contribute to the pipeline and ultimately the gun violence in our community. If you happened to be with us last month, you saw that we had a conversation on Black men and Black love. Well, tonight, by popular demand, we're having a similar conversation, Black women and Black love. So I want to introduce the friend of mine. They call him the young Malcolm X, who will have the opportunity to really facilitate this conversation with us. It's a tough conversation to have, but I wanted to make sure that it was a balanced conversation. You allow me to introduce Mr. Lionel Lightboard.
Always want to do that. Thank you. Sorry to you. Good afternoon, or good evening rather. Ladies, happy Women's Month. You guys deserve every bit of it. It is your time. It's well deserved. Matter of fact, it's well overdue. I'm grateful to be here and honored to be here to facilitate this conversation. I'm a husband of about 15 years in November, 19 years total.
Right.
Dating for, we dated for 4 years, been married for 15. So a total of 19 years. I'm also a father of 3 daughters and also a fan of women. Both in the positive and the negative.
Okay.
But that's another story.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's the thing about it. You're gonna find out how powerful you guys is and what make you powerful. Matter of fact, leading to that, I'm gonna have 2 questions for you. 2 very simple questions. You're gonna have to think about it. As a matter of fact, you can think about it. I'm gonna throw the questions out there. You can think about it as I talk, which will give you time to answer it. And then I'll let you guys answer individually. But it's, first question, what makes you a powerful woman? And what makes you a powerful wife? We can get this conversation started. Again, I'm a facilitator. So all I'm gonna do is throw the questions out. You guys can answer it to the truest. Notice it, to the best of your truth. Is that fair enough?
Yes.
There's no right answer. This is what you call a consensus. When a consensus means that every answer is the right answer. Okay, fair enough? So remember the 2 questions I asked, right?
Ask them again.
Okay. 2 questions I asked, because I heard you guys talking in small talk before we got started earlier. So I was just taking things in, and I have an analysis that I have to do. Take it in when I'm taking it in. So your answers will predicate or influence my analysis. And I got to take it in as a man, and then exactly. So the first question was, what makes you a powerful or great woman? The second question is, what makes you a powerful or great wife?
To those that are wives.
For those who are not, but those who are wives who are going to be a wife or who used to be a wife. You understand that even if you have a desire to be a wife, I want you to answer that question with your desire. If you don't have a desire to be a wife, answer the question. I know somebody on the outside of the camera saying, well, I don't have one to be a wife. But if you don't have a desire to be a wife, still answer the question. Again,
That's fair.
It wouldn't make you less of a, because guess what? You may just opt to be a great woman. You understand? But as a fan of women, and this in the positive, right? It's gonna, what you think about this answer is gonna determine what you think about your husband, or what your husband possibly think about you, or your significant other. So again, what makes you a great or powerful woman? First question. And what makes you a powerful or great wife? This is the second question. So we'll start with the first question. We'll go around the room in no particular order. Anyone who thinks they are ready to answer this question, can by all means let the consensus begin. That's for you too, Shirley. So we can't leave you out because you're all over and you're part of the celebration.
Who going first? Go ahead, Val.
What makes me a great and powerful woman? I'm gonna take this from the best daddy in the world, and yes, I am biased. My daddy. He says my ability to adapt. I might cry, I might get angry, but I might even stumble a little bit, but there has never been a time that I haven't been able to adapt. Quick backstory. In undergrad, I was homeless, but it did not. I used like those little stumbling moments as my way to, I guess, redirect and motivate. And I think that I've seen that in every Black woman that I've been fortunate to encounter, especially those that I call my mentors. They have never been in a situation of pressure where they didn't actually come out not only succeeding but exceeding that expectation. So that makes me powerful, and I'm powerful because of them.
All right. Who's on next?
What makes me a great woman? My ability to push through no matter what, the circumstances, no matter the losses, the hurt, I'm able to push through and see the brighter side of things. My ability to bear a child, I know a lot of women can't and want to, but can't, unfortunately. But the ability to stick through the pain and go through that labor and still, stand and be strong, what makes me a good woman.
Okay, so I'll take that question, I think. What makes me a great woman, you ask?
I'm gonna tell you, we're gonna change the question because she just added to it. I mean, she just totally consolidated that question. What makes you a great and powerful woman? I like the way she rephrased that. So what makes you a great and powerful woman?
Okay, what makes me a great and powerful woman, I think it is my ability to forgive.
Ooh, okay.
And being able to forgive even when it hurts brings healing to your soul, and you're able to move on, and you're able to love and continue to love. So I think that's what makes me a great and powerful woman.
Anyone else? Shirley, you can jump in anytime. I told you you're not exempt from the process.
So I think what makes me a great and powerful woman, I know exactly what my calling is. So I don't try to do what I'm not called to do. I also, because I know what my calling is, it helps me stay in my lane, and despite the obstacles, despite how many different directions I'm pulling, I fully understand why God gives me the breath of life, right? I think the second thing that makes me a great and powerful woman, and those words make me very uncomfortable, is the fact that I also understand I am only who I am because of who came before me. So I don't ever forget the sacrifices that my mom made. Being an immigrant woman here, doing the jobs she did so that I can have the privilege that I have. So every chance I get, I try to pay that forward. And for me, that is the sign of true greatness, is not to just hold it to yourself, but to try to pay it forward and grab somebody with you.
So off of that, my word was sacrifice.
Okay.
I've been thinking about sacrifice. I'm listening. I'm like, Yolanda, just shut up. Let's hear what the Lord has to say before you give your 2 cents. One of the things, just an experience, we sacrifice a lot. Being Black, being a woman, being a mother, being an educator, whatever role you are in, I feel like oftentimes we sacrifice, and we often put ourselves on a back burner for everything else. We're the only ones that can give life. Not saying y'all don't help, but we're the only ones that can bring life into this world. And I just feel like overall we always have so much on our shoulders. There's always so much we have to bear. And sometimes we sacrifice for our kids, we sacrifice for our husbands, we sacrifice for our jobs. And I can't speak how much sacrifice. That's the one word I just sacrifice. And if there's anything we learn from here, it's okay to put yourself first. It's one thing I'm learning as a mom, as a wife, that I didn't do. You know, you lose yourself in relationships, you lose yourself with your kids. You lose yourself, for those who have lost themselves. And sometimes you feel selfish for putting yourself first. And it's not selfish at the end of the day. So sacrifice is my word.
Anyone else, ladies? He has some really good answers because this is just building my narrative.
Okay, I'd like to add, so one thing that makes me a great and powerful woman is no fear. I was raised by a teenage mom, but she grew up in the same home with her family. So until I was maybe 5 or 6, I didn't know that grandma and granddaddy was grandma and granddaddy, that was mom and daddy. You know, so I had a very safe, stable, healthy, loving home, and I grew up being safe. So when it was time to take chances, I didn't have any fear. So I've grown up in that culture, and I always, before I lost my mom a couple months ago, we used to talk about she was a free black girl raising a free black girl, and here I am, you know, a mother to a 7-year-old free black girl, you know, not putting the constraints on my children because they weren't put on me, so that they'll know no fear, that you can stand up in any room and belong. You can go in any space, and it's your space.
Correct.
And there's a power in that, and I love that I'm being able to pass that down.
I guess I'll go next. I would say what makes me a great and powerful woman is basically looking at who it is that I want to be, or I would say my higher self, and trying to continually strive to be that person, but at the same time being okay with where I am right now. And so one of the things that I like to do is basically just kind of be okay and be happy with me, and then it helps me to kind of keep pushing. With certain experiences that I've been through in my life, certain traumas and certain heartbreaks and things of that nature, I'm even surprised that I've come where I've come. And Shirley, I know you know more details, but I would say I'm very proud of who I am as a person. I think I have a beautiful spirit, and I just love the fact that I am my biggest support system. I see my mother in me. I see my father in me also, and I see myself in me as well. And so just continually just showing up as myself and continuing to try to show up as my true self, even when at times it might feel difficult. And another thing that I really like that I think has added to that power and that greatness is being okay with the parts that I don't like. And similar to how, you know, we've gone through these leadership programs at work and trying to move ahead in your career, and they always tell you to work with your weaknesses, and having to apply that to my personal life has been like a pivotal move with just me really feeling powerful. You know, just looking at those weaknesses and just saying, you know what, no, that's not a weakness, that's actually beauty. Those are the beautiful parts of me. And so just being okay with all of those aspects, I think that's what makes me powerful.
To piggyback on that just what you stated, I think what makes me powerful and great is I'm unapologetically me. And I think just growing up, been put, like, you know, you just have labels on you. And I think a lot of times you see, okay, you're black, or you're this, or you're that, and you're just like, am I that person? And sometimes that defines you. And I think for me, just going through this self-awareness path that I've been going on for 5 years, I'm like, I've always been unapologetically me. People may not like it. Even when I speak the truth, they're just like, okay, you're so aggressive with it, or you're, you know, so dominant. But I'm just like, well, that's how I operate. I can't, you know, I'm not the docile, you know, woo type of person. I've always been so strong. So I'm just unapologetically me, and it's just, I always say, I may not be your cup of coffee, but somebody else, I might be sweet tea, I might be, you know, green tea, I might be water. So I think I just go into a space and I'm like, okay, I may not be for you, but I may be for somebody else.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Oh, you wasn't here. You the new young lady. You're the newbie. Okay. The question was, and two-part question. What makes you, and I should let you guys answer both at the same time, but you know, we'll go and deal with the second one next. But what makes you, and then she consolidated the question, a great and powerful woman, and what makes you a great and powerful wife?
Assuming you want to be a woman.
Assuming you want to be a woman. Yeah, put that disclaimer in there. Absolutely.
What makes me a powerful woman? I think my commitment to my people. Also that I just gotta be honest that I come from powerful women. We come from a family that has a lot of women. I'm one of 4 girls. My uncle had 2 girls. My uncle, the other uncle on the other side, has 3 girls, and so I come from a lot of women and powerful women who have always made something out of nothing. And I really see that, and so the potential that I see in people, I believe, is what makes me powerful, because I don't think power is often like position, but it's also, I think, a mentality around what you're able to do for and with people. And I also think, to Bertha's point, you know, nothing in life would have told me I'll be here today, right? And I think that when I look at my sisters and I, God is amazing, right? And not only that, is that I had an amazing mom, right? And so, I come from amazing people, amazing women specifically, but what that amazing woman was able to do for her 4 daughters, remarkable. And so, who am I to not shine my light? Who am I to not take life seriously, to your point? You know, people might see me and say I'm aggressive. Life is short, and I know that firsthand. And so I take life seriously. And I think that that brings a lot of power to me, to know that I see every day that it could be your last. And I'm going to show up in that way for me and my friends and for my people. Hence why I'm late, but I'm here. And in terms of the second point, I don't know if they really want me like that, but I mean, my commitment to myself, I believe in in marriage. I believe in partnership. Grew up in the church. I believe that God knew we needed partnership, and so that's why it exists. But I won't dim my light for men, and so I think that that's what we need to think about. And I think there's a lot of trauma in our relationship, specifically with Black men, who I'm overwhelmingly attracted to. That's my spicy sauce. And so I just think that what does it look like to be a king to a queen? And what does it look like for me to be a queen to a king? Is things that we need to really delve deep and figure out as a community and as a people.
Can I follow up with something you said? Explain what you mean by dim your light.
Right.
For a man, because just in case people didn't hear her point.
Well, say it again.
Dimming your light for a man. Explain, because I think that's a perspective, Sandra, that a lot of us often balance. Like, I gotta be me, right? I'm not gonna change who I am for somebody else. So explain what you mean by that.
I'm a big deal. And I'm a lot, and I know that, right? And so I think that, you know, and we grow up, and a lot of us who are Haitian, we grow up in the culture, and Black women in general, that you gotta be a different kind of woman, you know, to be silent, to not have opinion. You can't pay me not to have an opinion. You know, it's just not who I am. Do I believe in co-leadership? Yeah, because I think iron sharpens iron. Do I believe in apologizing when we need to? Yeah. Not always having to be the leader? Absolutely. But I don't believe in a lot of what I've seen in life in terms of your ability to take care of yourself first, right? To put you first. Not to put yourself as the wife, as you as the mother, but you as the individual, to be able to put that first too, and to nurture that and to take care of that. That's what I mean about, like, I'm gonna take care of me. I'm gonna be a big deal. I'm gonna have opinions respectfully. And it's okay. Because I think partnership, if that's what we truly desire, takes that into consideration.
So I see a lot of head nods, and I'm gonna go back to you in a minute. I see a lot, some of y'all heads wobbling. Like, oh. How many of us can agree, and, you know, I'm not gonna say all in 100%, because I don't want people to feel like, oh, well, I don't think like Sandra, I may agree with part. How many of us can agree at some point with what Sandra's sharing?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So those are the conversations we need to have, and that's why it's important, right? Because what Sandra is sharing, the point you made earlier, Val, that intergenerational. So imagine if your mom's in your life, your mom wasn't raised the same way. So your ability to be outspoken and the way you are with your relationship is going to be different than the way my mother was with hers. So then the question becomes, our children are watching this, right? So now they're caught in the intergenerational and they're developing their own. So I just kind of want us to always remember the thread between this entire conversation is what are our young people looking at, right? So yes, there's a lot of, I'm gonna be bold, and how do we teach that? And how do we ensure that they understand what that means without losing true to self?
To piggyback off of what Sandra just said, initially when you asked the question of what makes you a great and powerful woman, the first thing that I started thinking is I don't think of myself in that way.
I was uncomfortable with that.
It
word.
didn't, I really am. I'm like, I don't really think of myself as great and powerful. And for whatever reason, what it triggered was this memory that I have, which was a little odd, and I remember telling my husband at the time. There was one day this happened a few years back. I went to the daycare to pick up my kids, and one of the young workers who works at the daycare, and she sees me every day, and she just came up to me and she said, I want to tell you that when I grow up, I want to be just like you. And you know when something just throws you for a loop? And I just looked at her and I said, oh, thank you. I actually really didn't know what to say. And she says, I see you every day. You look professional. I like your car like this, I like that. And I just want to be just like you. So I went home and I told my husband, and I said, the weirdest thing just happened. And he's the one who had to tell me, well, honey, you are a successful young woman. And until that point, it hadn't it's not something that registers that you even think about until somebody else saw it and said, hey, I wanted to, because it really, really took me for a loop. Now to piggyback off of the other stuff as far as why I think, I have to think about it, I'm a great and powerful woman. It is because of the women who are in my life. My grandmother likes to tell this story, which I love. She says, I only have, she's alive. She's going to be 99 years old this year. She was born in 1922. And when she lost her mom when she was young, and at the time, before she was able to go to school to the 3rd grade, and her uncle took her out of school because he didn't think it made any sense for women to have an education. So she always said, I only have a 3rd grade education, but look what I can do. She always believed in school. She pushed her children, her kids. 2 of them are doctors, 1 became a teacher with her 3rd grade education. So watching them having that pride and that confidence, and that's why I tell people, it doesn't matter where you come from. My whole point is that because I saw from coming from having, then not having, and then to have again, to go through that circle, it teaches you and it makes you appreciate things. You learn to have a certain appreciation for everything that you have.
Now that question was really a setup that I'm asking you guys, because everything I'm gonna do here is gonna be a setup. The whole purpose for that question, let me be very clear, is for you to start to do something every one of you guys says with the sacrifice and humility and forgiveness, is for most black women around the world, you need to practice your narrative.
Yeah.
Because your narrative says so that you know who you are. And you should be able to answer that in 30 seconds flat like a McDonald's commercial. The kids know they want McDonald's, and if the TV could teach the kid how to want McDonald's on a 30-second commercial, then that kid should know how to respect and want his mama.
Yes.
If she know who she is in 30 seconds, the same way her husband should in society. So you have to know your narrative in 30 seconds. So when I ask you that, you guys are in such a sacrificial mode. It comes from a sacrificial heritage. Probably since the beginning of time, you're right. You self-deny. You self-deprive. And so when you self-deny and you self-deprive, when I ask you a question pertaining to really who you are and who you deserve to be, if I ask you about your kids right now, you'd be like, ask you about the husband. But I ask you about men. So when I start to ask you about you, that's when you struggle with your narrative. So the whole setup of this question was for you to understand and get to revisit and come acquainted with your own narrative. So you can know that you know it. You can hand that knowing down to the next generation. Remember, you said your daughters are queens, and they're very important. but they need to know the narratives of their moms and their mentor wives. So let's go on to the wife section. You have anything you want to interject with?
No, I wanna keep the conversation
Okay,
going.
so anybody else that wanted to share, please, they didn't get a chance.
Yes, these two amazing women spoke on something, and you brought up intergenerational trauma. So I'm gonna hit up one thing first. I'm gonna try to make it quick. But something that you shared was, and I'm referring to Martine, you spoke of how you didn't even realize how great you were doing. And I think that's because of societal standard that has for Black women. We're taught that when we are doing big things, we need to be extra humble. So when we go around like, and this is, when I got this position, I was just like, oh, I'm just a center manager. And then I remember I told my mom, and my mom was like, oh, my baby, look, she told everyone. And I just didn't get it. And this is, I'm gonna be very vulnerable, y'all. I am in therapy. I'm in therapy trying to heal that intergenerational trauma, because I hope to one day have children, and I don't want to pass that down.
Come on.
So, something that we often talk about, and when I sought out a woman of color when it came down for my therapy, and something that we talked about, and she was like, I see a pattern in women of color, especially Black women. Y'all are never doing, you guys don't mentally take in that you guys are doing great.
Right.
And that's something you brought in, like you were saying how your grandmother said she had a 3rd grade education, and now she has 2 doctors, a teacher. That's something that was beyond her imagination. And here you are walking in that, and you didn't even realize until somebody stopped you and said, I want to be like you. So something that I challenge us all to do, no matter what walk of life or what position or whatever it is you in, is to sit down and just say, I am here and I'm doing great. That's one. Now for the intergenerational trauma, which is something that you said. I will be honest, and this is me being vulnerable again. Up until I left for college, I had this resentment towards my mother.
Come on.
I'm gonna say this, and Daddy, if you see this, I love you, but my dad was a great father, but he was a terrible man.
We can talk about that.
Okay.
Yes.
He was a terrible man. Like something that my dad did, he told me how beautiful I was every day. He made sure I loved myself, but he drove my mom to a mental issue. So I grew up resenting my mother because I was just like, in my head, I used to always be like, I don't want to be like her. I don't want no man to beat on me. I don't, if I have children, I never want them, like, I was just like, how could you be this way? And then honestly, in truth, I used to beg my mom to leave. She didn't until my dad left. So even then, there was another layer of resentment. Forgive me for being this transparent, y'all. My mom, she'll like, one thing I regret is saying I'm staying for the kids. But the thing that my mom showed me, and this is something that I don't think as Black women we're taught to do, is to look on the other side of that narrative. Because a lot of our mothers, especially, like just Black women, go through a lot of trauma. But, no, it's okay. I'm a crier, girl. But the resilience, like, I see as an adult woman now, I see my mother in me. And I say, like I said earlier, I am powerful because of them. Because my mom showed strength. My mom showed resilience. Like, the stuff that my mom went through, she shouldn't be standing here today. My mom, she may not have left my father, but she be damned if she let Pierre punch her and not punch back. But I say that to say that, yes, it has marked me, and it is a part of my healing, but there's something to learn for like women that have gone through that or seen your parents go through that. It doesn't make them, they're not weak, they're not damaged, but these are strong women. Like strong women, and it's something that she saw and she learned to kind of go through it, because that's something my grandmother went through. So she did the same, but she did it for her children. But at the end of the day, like my mom always went back, like we talked about it the other day, and she was like, this is why I always told you who you were. Know who you are. I'm sorry, I'm going on a tangent, but know who you are, so that when it came down to it, or when it comes down for me to love or truly have my love, this wouldn't be my expectation for love. All right, I just went on a tangent.
Great sharing. Anybody want to follow up? I got some people that's quiet, and I'm gonna start pointing fingers, I'm gonna start calling folks out. Sandra, you wanna add anything? Cause Sandra's work is predominantly with Black women. That's why it was important for me to have Sandra in the room. Sandra understands and deals with Black women and their issues, and predominantly undocumented Black women, just women in general who were dealing with some of the same situations our parents dealt with. So one of the things I can say is when Sandra was taking this position, she saw it as an opportunity to actually serve, because these were the women who came before her, right? So I'll reference to Sandra quite a bit because this is her body of work. I really want us to understand what's happening right now is oftentimes we don't think about these things. Our parents are staying, or we saw them stay, what we thought was a sign of weakness in return may have been a sign of strength because they wanted something else. But that's not how we perceive things, right? And we kind of have to, what's the word, Sandra? Reconcile? We gotta reconcile the two. So that was gonna be my question. When your mom, when you had that resentment towards her, because I hear that a lot in the kids that I serve, particularly the girls. My mom was weak because I wouldn't let no man put his hands on me. Of course, they don't understand the sacrifice, right? They don't understand what goes into making that decision. So did you see it at that age as a sign of weakness, and now you're seeing it as a strength, or have you reconciled?
When it was occurring, I saw it as a major weakness, and that's where that resentment kind of manifested. But as an adult, and I went through my own trauma with it, like especially when you go through it, you see there's a psychology behind it. You just don't wake up and somebody punches you. No, it develops. But even past that, like coming into it and talking and getting the help I needed to heal within myself, I realized there was strength in there some way, cause my mom carried it. So
good answer. Anybody on this side? Cause y'all quiet. This side,
So
like y'all watching.
I'm gonna piggyback a little bit on what you say. I never saw my mom in an abusive relationship, right? But here I was in an abusive relationship, and because I didn't see her in one, I didn't stay in one. I didn't know what it was, because you're right. It starts off with verbal, right? And then it gets to emotional, and then it gets to physical. So when I saw that, I was like, you can't tell me who I am. I know me. So you can't tell me who I am. And to the point where when he left, the only thing that I took, because I was a mother, and so I was looking at what my son was seeing, and what his view when he gets older will be of women. And so, and I was pretty young, but I knew that that was not right. And so when he left, I packed my clothes, my son's clothes, and I left that big beautiful house and him. Okay? And I moved into an apartment with my son, and I didn't look back, and have not looked back. And if you talk to my son today, he'll tell you that my mom is one of the strongest women I know, because here I was, a young single mother, just took a leap of faith, and knowing that God is my source, and that's who pulled me through all of that. And that's why I say I have the greatest son there is, because he just is totally different from his dad, because I showed him other positive Black men. I made sure that I let other positive Black men in his life, so that he could see that it's just not one-sided. So, like I said, and it helps, because like I said, I've never seen my mom in it, or, I grew up with a lot of women too, and they're warriors, they're fighters, so they don't fight back. So I never saw that. So when that happened to me, I was like,
I'm gonna share something with you guys about from a male perspective, because I could be any of those guys at any time. I have been many of those guys at many times. I'm gonna play the devil's advocate here, so you guys can have a free fall. You get to say whatever you need to. I'm gonna be what they call it, the sacrificial lamb. Well, I won't say the sacrificial mule. I'm crazy. The sacrificial lamb here, and I know it's often said that the mother or the parent is the first teacher. But I can tell you as the man, and I can tell you as a grown man now, I can guarantee you are the first therapist for a man. Let me tell you that if I never told you nothing else. Because that's the first time we would ever get into therapy, it's the first when the relationship we get into.
Yep.
So, and if nobody never told you, and this is why you guys, back to your intergenerational trauma, is because black men, for the most part, we never got access to therapists. Matter of fact, we was always the experiment society.
Yep.
So by the time you get into a relationship, and I know I have this relationship, mom is the only thing with grandmama and big mama them, and that's the only relationship that I know that was always given to me. Now I'm in a relationship that I have to give. You become the therapist. And so this is why many times where men end up being a better friend to you than they was a lover to you. Because you were their greatest therapist, usually their first time. And then they become a better husband to some other woman.
You're
Hands
absolutely
went
right.
up.
Hands went up. Right. Because
Mhm.
today we are the best of friends.
There you go.
You know, but also I wanted to also say that even though we had our faults,
Mhm.
I never allowed the fact that his abusiveness or whatever separated him from his son. You were his father, you are going to be his father. I don't care if we need to meet at McDonald's,
Mhm.
but you are going to have time with your son, and that was something that I stood on. I never took his son away from him or say, you can't see your son, you
Correct.
know, and so that was another thing, but yeah, we are the best of friends. And a lot of people are like, oh, you guys gonna get back together? No.
Yolanda?
Okay, so I'm gonna try not to go off on a tangent, but the tangent makes sense, so bear with me. I'm a marriage and family therapist and a licensed mental health care counselor. So that's the perspective that I was thinking. So with family therapy, one of the things we often don't do is set the roles and set the boundaries. That's the biggest thing. Most issues stem from boundaries. We don't often value ourselves to say, I have a right to say this is how it's gonna be, and then the couple negotiates. I can say right now, and this is my vulnerable piece, I'm lost. I'm lost in the sense of, I know who I am, but it's so much more than just a mother and a wife. And I think that's a societal view that they put on women, you know, not saying or minimizing those roles, but we're so much more than that. I say that to say, going back to the boundaries and the roles, I think a lot of times we lose ourselves in establishing who we are before we get into a relationship. So as I shared, I got into a relationship in college, and at that age, do you really know what you want? I'm just saying.
That's a no.
And my ideal was, okay, you get married, you have kids, and then everything is just peachy keen. And now I'm in the stage where like, that's not how it goes. There is growing pains, and there's adaptations for women when we have children. You know, your man is no longer the spotlight. He there, but you trying to make sure the little 1 and 2 are good. You get into a space where you settle. What happens when you don't want to settle anymore? And you guys grow apart. Then what? Where do you go from there? So I say that just to throw that into perspective, to throw that into the conversation, because I think that does add and play a role that often people don't talk about. It pairs with your self-growth. It pairs with having that power. Hey, I'm this way, you take it or leave it. And just put it out there.
I was gonna say, so a friend of mine, and I'm sure some of my friends here have heard me say this, you know, there's all these black women reading their Brene Brown, they on their podcast, Therapy for Black Girls.
Yes.
Doing the work so that we can show up so that we can know ourselves and we can really understand what the issues that are maybe intergenerational issues, going to therapy without people saying you need therapy, really just trying to do the work so that we can show up as good people. And I often feel like while we're doing this work, guys are playing basketball outside. and my immediate reaction to women being therapists to men was, just really honest. I was like, I resent that.
Mm-hmm.
I resent that I not only have to do the work for me,
But for you,
I gotta
do the work for you
too.
too. And then to my favorite word, and I think it sounds better, my favorite phrase, and I think it sounds better in Creole, but I'll translate it. Femme pas moun, like women, are we not people too?
Mm-hmm.
We gotta do the emotional labor for us, our children, and for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I think that what really resonates with me is because I have sisters, I'm the only one that's not married. And I often ask them, what have you done for you? What are you like? When the last time you've done something just for you? Because you're important. You're a big deal. And I'm saying that not because I always feel like I'm a big deal. It's a mantra because someone said it to me. You're a big deal, Sandra. And so, I think that it is not my responsibility to help you learn how to communicate, to help you understand your issues, to deal with your mom and daddy pains and issues. What would it look like for you to equally do the work that I'm willing to do? And I don't know that we can continue to not expect the same. Because we were slaves too, y'all.
Yeah.
We went through the same thing. We were there in partnership together. And so I think that often there's this talk that we never got it, but we didn't either.
But you
I
said
just,
something, you said something
sorry.
very important.
So I was like, babe, what is the problem? He said, a lot of times men they don't even know what they're feeling. He was like, so many times I cannot put into words how I'm feeling. My 10-year-old just broke down at dinner, and I'm like, why are you feeling this way? Why can't you talk? He's like, I don't know. And Ezra's like, okay, babe, just take a step back. I get what he's going through, because so many times you're like, as a man, you have to do this, you have to do that. And he said, we're only told to be providers. We're not told to, for emotional, issues and everything. So I just think with that, it gave me another outlook that I'm like, when you get into relationships, are you really talking to your partner? Are you having these deep conversations? Because a lot of times you're just so in love, and being in church, you're taught, okay, before you sin, get married or whatever, and you're just like, it's not about that or whatever. It's all, you're just talking about one aspect of it, but it's so
much more.
It's so much more as Black people that we go through. I have to understand, as a Black man, I'll never understand what he's going through, and vice versa. As a wife, as a mother, he won't understand. So when he said the whole therapist thing, I was just like, I get it, because I was doing that, and I had to take a step back, and I was just like, I can't take another. I'm not saying we were having bad issues, but I'm just like, I can't keep doing this where I'm putting you first in every single thing and my boys first in every single thing. So I need you to seek therapy. And he sought it, and we've been doing great. But a lot of men, and it's not to bash, but they won't see, I need to see a therapist. I need to take that first step.
And we are tired, baby.
Yeah.
Like,
Come on, please, go
That's
ahead.
what it is.
Just give it all. Just,
Yes.
No.
I'm y'all pinata right now. Just go ahead, swing one.
No, so
yeah.
we're tired. I will co-sign on that. And listen, me and my husband have been together for 20 years.
Come on now.
We met first day of work at DCF, trying to save babies from abuse and neglect. So this is a good man, good heart, hardworking. He's not Black, he's Filipino, but this is, he's somebody who's inundated in our culture. He's someone who cared about family. Like, we just had a lot of things in common. Still, not knowing how to communicate, not knowing how to fight and be okay afterwards, and not throw everything in the kitchen sink. When we have an argument, like, can we stay on topic, please? Like, these are things that we have to do in relationships. So, as Black women, a lot of our identity is rolled into our profession, right? Especially for those of us that are upper working class, middle class. It's not who you know, it's what you do. Like, that's where your pride comes from. Like, your mom was proud about your job. Like, your pride comes from what your job is. So imagine losing your job. Who are you? You give birth to a child, you can't go back to work, you're taking care of this baby, who are you? So now you're a nursemaid, you're a housewife. Like, you have to know who you are at all stages of your life. And it constantly changes. So we're having to, like we said, we're doing the work. We're trying to figure that out. We're still trying to be the steady piece in this roaring ocean of life for our kids, for our parents, for our siblings, for our community. We holding it down. We're the anchor. Then what happens when there's no sand beneath the anchor's feet? What happens when there's nothing holding us down? Then everything is off skew, and then we still take that on our shoulders as well. It's a tough struggle.
Sorry, I thought you were done. 2 points, I would say. One, just to go back to what we were initially, or right before the last point she made. I've dated men, a particular guy, I would say, who his father passed, and he had a struggle with dealing with that loss, which both my parents are deceased, so I understand that it's very hard to lose a parent. And at the time my dad had passed, that was the only parent that had lost, so I really understood where he was coming from, and as a result, he had this condition that he was struggling with. And when I asked him, did he consider therapy, he said he's never going to therapy. So as a woman, what am I supposed to do with that?
Break up, sis.
No, we did. No, we broke up. We broke up. No, we broke up. But I'm just saying, like, where is this coming from? And he's not the only person he's not the only black man I've heard say this.
Yeah.
And so when my mother passed, I suggested that to my brother, and he said the same thing.
It's viewed as weakness. I don't know.
Yeah, but listen, so therapy's gonna have to look different for men. Apparently, because I guess it's too soft or
Maybe
too
the
feminine or
basketball
too whatever.
The barbershop.
They're doing a lot of
That's
that,
basketball Sandra
No.
was talking about.
Let me get some man. Let me just
Listening
interject.
to other
That's-
fools.
Let me see if I can take a stab as a man. I can't answer for all men,
Okay.
but I'm just gonna try to make some sense out of it. I think it was Michelle Obama. I think it was Michelle Obama. That says we love our boys and raise our girls, right? Historically, all the instructions is given to the women, so you guys will get all the intelligence, and so you grow up, you're raised to be emotionally intelligent, and then men were raised to be emotionally instinct. So now you got
That was
instinct.
outside.
Now you're trying to
That was outside.
So now you got instinct, right?
Playing basketball.
And outside, and culturally, and particularly in the African culture, but just the historic culture, we were taught to go outside because if you take football out of the equation, if you go historically, you're then taught to go outside and go hunt. And hunting make more sense because it has more instructions and stuff like that. So when you got an emotionally intelligent creature just trying to pit up an emotional instinct, you understand? But we understand too our position. Never get even the dumbest man knows his position.
That's all
What's his
boys want.
position?
It's
Right.
the rules and the charge.
Even if he can't explain it, he knows his position. So when you position as the head in society, you understand, and someone is in a position not to be the head tells the head what to do.
So wait,
Mhm.
hold on.
Go ahead.
So I think that's another conversation we need to have. This notion of the head.
Mhm.
Because I see the women already like,
Right.
I can see Sandra face, I see Bo back there, Yolanda answering.
So for 400 years.
So this notion of the head, right,
It's interesting.
albeit biblical, I want to say that for as Sandra like to say, for my Christian folks. But right now, with women making more money, with women in higher positions, with women being the breadwinner of many of the families, do we find that that's part of the issue we're having in the household? Because men are taught that they're the head, but yet the woman is making the decisions, the woman is making the money, the woman is that an imbalance, and is that where this whole concept of the strong woman comes from? Because I think we need to talk about that, because what are we passing down? I'm gonna go to Mo, and then I'm gonna come to.
So just
Ooh, Sandy.
a little piece. I think we as an African culture are trying to superimpose onto a Western culture. Western culture is patriarchy, right? It's patriarchal. African culture, lots of African cultures are not. It is matriarchal. So
Say that again, because I don't think people understand that.
no,
Say that
so
again,
yeah,
'cause people that's
so a
watching.
lot of African cultures are matriarchal. So the mother is the head, the matrilineal line. That's where family is traced. That is how instructions on the line is passed along. It's through the mother's line. That is who the head is. That is who it runs the family. That's who's in control. And I think our struggle here specifically in America is that we're trying to put our African culture onto their Western culture and making it fit, or trying to follow their culture and it's not ours and it's not working. And so our men who are inundated with TV and radio and music and all this other stuff are learning patriarchy. They're learning patriarchy, but in our bones as women, that don't feel right. It don't make sense. If I'm the smartest one, then it should be me making the decisions. If I make more money, then that I think women have the capacity to be in a position of power without abusing that power. So we can be in charge of, like, because we be manipulating whatever we gotta do to get things done. But now, why I gotta play mental gymnastics when it would just make more sense?
Just let me make the decision.
Just
and
please,
be done with it.
just do what I say and
Good point, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Good point, Mo. Sandy, go ahead.
But also to just go to what she's saying. So here it is, you have all these men, and I even look at my own son, and we're teaching them to be the head, but he's watched me be the head.
Come on.
Just like I watched my mother be the head. Even though his father was gainfully employed and provided, but I made those type of decisions. His father had no interest really in running the household and those type of things. I did that as I watched my mom, as my mom watched her mom. Exactly what you're saying. And I remember when I was in the midst of having my divorce, because I was married very young, right out of college, and I made a lot of those same errors. I just assumed that was the way you did it. I graduated literally in May. I was engaged by the following February. I was married the following February. I popped out a child 9 months later. It was just because that's what I was taught was the ideal. But as my marriage was great in the beginning and then unraveled and then later ended, and now my ex-husband and I are friends and we laugh at some of the mistakes we made. And then he said, Sandy, because also my ex-husband was Haitian, whereas I'm Haitian American.
Okay.
Big difference.
Big
difference.
That's a good point.
And he used to make fun of me. He says, you know what your problem was? He was just like, you watched too much Cosby Show and you didn't realize that Cliff Huxtable's in jail now. And I remember being completely irritated when he said it originally, but later on thinking and saying it's true. I did convince myself that I could be Claire. That when I came home, that when Claire came home, miraculously, dinner was already. Cliff made dinner. Remember, Cliff used to stand there and make dinner, and he enjoyed it, and he didn't complain about it. And then he fed her apples on the couch.
And she was an attorney.
And she was an attorney, and he was a doctor, and his practice was downstairs. And he had no problem picking up children and dropping off children, and both their parents were alive and would come over for Sunday dinner. These were the images that I put in my head of what I want. And I have to say the backstory to me personal. My parents were divorced at when I was 3 years old. So I told myself, unless my husband beats me, I am not getting a divorce. Period. Full stop. That's how I felt. And when my marriage came to an end, I can say it now openly that we got a divorce because my husband filed for divorce. Because I was like, he's going through a phase. You know how these Negroes be. It's fine. We're going to work it out. Because I just did not want to get rid of that, this bubble of what I had, this family unit that I had. But all that to say, it's like, a lot of us said it earlier that we're tired. Just talking about it, I'm tired. Because it's like there's so much that you have to do. And people talk about this strong black woman thing as if it's like it's something you chose to do. You don't really have a choice. It's not really a choice. Like, I gotta be depressed at night when I'm in bed.
That's right.
Because during the day, like when I leave here, I gotta go to my third job, which is parenthood. My 10-year-old, I gotta call my son, make sure he's not on South Beach. I gotta follow up. I gotta do the drive by on the campus. Where's the car? Like, I gotta do all that other stuff. So it's like, you're not strong because this is like I mean, I wish I could take credit for it. I can't take credit for it. I feel like I have no
You have no
choice.
choice.
You know, it's funny.
Or else
you
that will be the
said-
demise of my family.
Right.
You said my husband is Haitian. I remember growing up, I said I would never marry a Haitian.
Girl, that's the ultimate jinx.
That was-
That is the ultimate jinx. I used to say that.
But I said, because my perception of him, I mean, my dad was this very machismo guy and coming home, and I love him, he was a great dad. But this whole thing of the dinner needs to be ready and, you know, having whomever feeding him and all that stuff, I'm not doing that. It just wasn't for me. I did not see myself doing that. I'm not a person who, I don't like to cook all the time. That's not me. And I had to come to that. That's not me. When I met my husband, who is, he's American. No, he's American. He is, his dad is Jamaican and his mom is Bahamian. The first thing I told him, I said, I don't cook. That was our first conversation, I don't cook. And his dad just said, Martine, how you Haitian and you don't cook? And I said, cause I don't cook. And my husband was right here, right there, and I said, and he knows that, I don't cook. After we got married, I would cook. And he said, oh my God, I thought you didn't know how to cook. I said, no, I said I don't cook.
There's a difference.
So when I do cook, he was so appreciative. And if I decide he come home, nothing happened, he was fine with getting a bowl of cereal, it's perfectly fine. But I had already established that to make sure, because that's something that was so dear and important to me. So when you said the Haitian, it just clicked. Because that's not something that I said, if I'm going to marry a Haitian, then he has to be truly Americanized. I can't deal with that mentality of the woman has to do it all, because that's not me. It's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. It's just not going to work.
Go ahead, Annette. Go ahead, Junior. So,
I'm gonna interject.
Junior's from U-turn. Now I got a U-turn. He was on the sideline.
I'm on the side.
Don't do that, Wiggy. Don't do that.
Tag team.
Wiggy trying to say something.
Don't worry, I'm leaving. But here's the thing, see, now, I'm that guy or that husband who most of you have been talking about. Lastly, the husband, and I'm in a positive way, right? I've been married, this year's gonna be 19 years, 24 years with my wife, her best friend. Now, for most of those years, to this day, my wife have no clue how to pay bills. I have been paying the bills since the first year of our marriage. Because when she was paying the bills, my wife is that mentality that, you know what? How much is this? Okay, I'm gonna pay bomb. I said, baby, we have to stretch our money. You know, our money is shorter than the month, so we have to. So I had to teach her how to make $5 last 30 days. She didn't know that. If it's $5, it's gonna end today. For 19 years, I've been paying her. If I give my wife every bill to pay, she would not know how to pay a single bill.
See?
Right? Now, also, I cook, I clean, I iron, I make sure the kids, none of that she does. I can tell you to this day, I think my wife have ironed less than 10 times her whole life.
He ain't lying.
Okay, when we travel, I iron the entire week of clothes before we travel. She doesn't know how to do it. Now, she doesn't know how to do it. My point is, for me, there was never such a role as a husband role, a wife role. When I got married, I said, honey, this is our role. Now, I don't expect for my wife to go out there and mow the lawn and dig weeds. No, I do that. But in terms of when we walk in our household, I believe that everything should be shared. And if one person has to take the responsibility of doing more, I'm there. My wife makes twice as much as I do, right? In 20 years, to this day, we have never argued about money. Never.
He deserves
20 years.
You deserve to have a wife. That's why you made it 20 years. Big
We
up to my friend.
have never used my money, your money. It's always been our money. I have told her from day one, there's no such thing as me. We're gonna take that M and flip it over and make it we. The 3 arrows are always gonna point out in this relationship. And as men, we feel like if we make less than our wives, that we are less than, right? Most guys.
men, yeah.
Because why? We're only taught to provide financially.
Yeah.
We're not taught to provide
Emotionally.
spiritually, emotionally, sexually. We're not taught to provide those things. I said sexually. No, I'm talking about in the sense that women's sex starts with emotions.
Yes.
Right.
Our sex is more physical,
Yes.
and it's a slam dunk, thank you,
Absolutely.
ma'am.
Yes.
Right? But we're not taught to, hey, it takes a week to get in bed with your wife, right?
See?
This is
This is a peach in my junior.
So, on that
you,
note,
Jane. Go ahead, Yolanda.
I'm totally switching the gears, so I'm gonna apologize in advance because I'm going in a whole other direction. Piggybacking off of what she said about Western philosophies, I come from a strong Black family of matriarchs, 5 generations current. My great grandmother will be 99 this year. So one of the questions I would like to pose is being flexible and bendable. As the head in my household, being able to compromise with my husband, who may or may not feel inferior, not saying he does, but trying to, what does it look like finding the median? Because oftentimes I feel like we're the ones who have to,
We give so much.
We got it then.
I'm trying to think of the word. We're the ones that have to verbalize it. We're the ones that have to, let me speak for my relationship. I'm not gonna speak for nobody else. We're the ones that have to verbalize it. We are the ones that have to acknowledge it. So what does it look like with it being a partnership?
You know, I could,
You
when
get what I'm
you
saying?
said that, the thing that came to my mind was, I think we as women, without, and mothers, without even thinking about it, we just take on a whole lot. And even though the men are there, and I remember there was one evening, we were getting ready to go out, the kids were younger, and I had so much that I had to do. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to go pick this up, I have to give the kids a bath, I have to, meanwhile, I'm thinking about all this stuff, meanwhile, my husband's downstairs playing video games. Right?
Sounds about right.
And then it hit me like, why don't you get him to do some of the stuff? So then I called him and said, hey, honey, can you please go and do this, da da da. And he said, oh yeah, sure. But for a while, it had not, honest to God, I'm over here stressing out about all the stuff that I have to do. This man is right here chilling, relaxing. He had no problem to go and help, but he was not going to take the initiative and just go do it.
But then that's part of the problem.
Right?
That's why you need to
I had
Yes.
to ask
No, you
for it
do.
to happen.
You do.
And
That's okay.
you know,
Just
and
like-
once I did, it got done.
Yes.
But I had to ask.
Just like any of your staff at your job.
Mm.
Okay, these are your tasks for today. These are the things that I need you know, because they have their own things they need to do, but you have to ask. If you're asking for someone to initiate something, it's like you have to teach them to initiate. So by
Yes.
doing that, you give them, you say, hey babe, I need help with this, this, and this.
Exactly.
Or first thing in the morning before we get out of bed, good, okay, what's on your schedule today? What do you have on your agenda today? Boom, boom, boom. Okay, well, I need to do this, 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 and this.
Exactly.
So, you get the kids, you bring this to strategize.
And
that's
that's what I
our
had to
that's our
learn.
morning roll call.
Yes.
Check in. Okay,
Morning
boom.
roll call.
It's a business.
No, I was gonna say, lots of times, I don't think a lot of the men have been taught
That's it.
to initiate in those arenas. You know, they probably have been taught, open the door,
Right.
mow the lawn, put the garbage out. But the food part, even myself, in raising a young man, and my ex-husband has to tell me all the time, you can't do everything for him. Stop
Baby.
just babying him. He has to take, and he has to be able to do things for himself. And I had to teach that to my son, to not always be such a taker. And you know what he said to me one day? Well, Mama, you're always giving me. And it's almost like you have to hold back,
Yes.
so that the person can earn certain things. And I think it's the same. And as they get older, and you're dealing with men too, I feel like we have to just ask them to do certain things so that they know. But you shouldn't have to ask more than once. That's my whole thing.
No,
So-
but you gotta understand,
Agreed.
most men are still living in a boy mentality.
Lord
They're
have
still
mercy.
living through
See?
This
being
is
a,
why I said
that's the problem.
they need to be single.
And when I mean a boy
I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to-
I understand what
I'm
you're
gonna have to be
saying.
I'm gonna have to be the bad guy here because it's
The boy mentality, and you want to be my king?
Right, no. Correct. And
Go
to
sit
your
down
point,
somewhere.
oftentimes, and this for women, and this is what, because you guys, and I'm listening to you, and you getting ready to renegotiate your position. Because again, when you don't know what your position really is, you're gonna get ready to renegotiate it, and I'll tell you quick, I'll take that. Because you don't understand that the very position that you have is very essential for the body to live. So if you want to be the head, go ahead, be the head.
Yeah.
I'll be the heart.
We already the head.
No. Because again, the heart, the body can survive. The head, the brain will go bad, that body can still survive with that heart going. But when you kill that heart, head is automatically gone. So I'm saying that to say this. Your position is solidified. You don't have to you know what I'm saying? It doesn't, being a heart doesn't make me a lesser head, and being a head doesn't make you a lesser heart. You know what I'm saying? But again, when you think that, and for society, it's not so much you think that. Society made y'all feel that way, that being a heart is being a lesser organ.
I think it's that we are the head and the heart. And something has to give. It's not that we want to be the head. I don't want to be the head. But if you're going to be the head, be the head.
Yes.
And I gotta trust that you're the head.
And that
you
you can
can't
handle what comes with being the head.
That's right.
Yes.
Because being the head comes responsibility.
Ability.
And sacrifice.
And I would also say, to the point that was just made, comes consideration.
Yes.
Who are these people who can't consider that I might be tired, that I might need help? Because I consider that you might be hungry, that I consider that you might be tired, I consider that family might need something to eat. And so, like, to me, what does it look like for you to mirror what I'm giving to you? So I don't know that, to me, I don't think black women really are like, let's be the head. It's like, we are tired of being the head and the heart.
An example.
Okay.
And I'm gonna pick on Wiggy because she put her hand
Okay,
up.
so Wiggy, you first, and then I'm gonna go, Sandy, you had your hand up, was it Bertha?
That was me.
Go ahead, Wiggy.
So I heard everything that everyone had to say, and low key, high key, I'm kind of scared because I hear one end about how some of your marriages went. It was good in the beginning, then it didn't go good. Sorry. And I hear other people that's still married, and your marriage sounds like it's great. I don't know what to expect because I want to be married one day. I don't know if there's like a wife school because all of us we have degrees and stuff out there. And if there was a school to prepare us for something like this, but I just know that for me, I understand the whole what Ms. Morningay said about the matriarch thing. I just feel like maybe we should try it a different way. Maybe have the guys, the men lead. That's just for me personally. I think when you're dating and courting someone, you have an idea of how they were raised, whether they're considerate, whether if they're gonna think about you, and if they're giving you something that you don't want, maybe you don't marry them. But that's just my point of view. I wanted to answer the question about being a powerful woman. I don't consider myself to be powerful. I just consider myself to just be existing and doing what I love. I come from a family full of women, and they seem to like they were so dominant, and it just went bad for them. Like they all single, they were baby mamas. So I'm like, maybe I should do something different. I went to school, thank you to Dr. Shirley Planton. I had a great experience, but at the same time, I don't know where life is gonna lead me, but I just know that I wanna try something different, and I don't wanna be the head of my house, and that's just me.
So, wait, hold on, Bertha,
Yes,
and then,
Definitely.
Daphne.
She ain't been saying.
So it was, Sandy, you have one? Okay, so it'll be Bertha, because I need to kind of shift us right after this line, okay? So after you, Val, I'll shift us over. Go ahead, Bertha.
So what I will say is, I'm not gonna lie, growing up, my father was the dominant energy, the more quote unquote traditional masculine energy, or what you would say, what most people, the Western way of, I guess, doing things. And he taught me that this is something that's normal. And I'm not gonna lie, when I show up in relationships, this is kind of what I like to see. And I don't have a problem, but again, to Sandra's point, I want to make sure that whoever it is that I'm dating or I'm going to marry is going to show up in a certain way that I feel like I can trust their decision-making ability. I can trust that not only are they going to be able to make decisions and handle life, and how they handle life, but also they're going to be considerate of my feelings, as she said. Because one of the things I always looked at is, for me, if you're leading, you have to consider all of these things. It's not just providing and protecting. You literally have to look at every single angle, right? It's not just these angles on top. It's the angles at the bottom, then it's these angles, then it's that angle. Like, you literally have to look at all of these angles, and it's a big role to step into, but I think there are men that are like that are out there.
Absolutely.
You know,
right there, yeah.
Right there.
So again, it's just obviously I think just finding the right fit. So I think those men exist. They're out there. I've met these men. They may not be the best fit for me, based on personality or whatever, but there are men that are like that out there. And then I want to touch on something that was mentioned earlier, but we kind of went like crazy talking about other things, is that my parents did end up getting a divorce when I was going into high school. And one of the things that I saw, and I'm bringing up my PTSD, but my mom had been with my dad since she was 17. And her entire identity was associated with him. She was Madame Belloni even after they had been divorced for like, half my life, And so it's just like, one of the things that, as I was a young adult or young girl or young woman, I never wanted to get married. I didn't see myself getting married to closer to 30. Now I'm a little bit beyond 30, but but it was because I made a conscious effort that I didn't want my entire life to be associated with another person. I wanted to be my own person and then merging our lives together. And so I was very conscious about that. And there's some other stuff, but that's what I'll say for now.
Good point. Daphne.
So I just want to figure on what somebody has said, but I know one thing that Centra has said, how the woman is the heart and the head. And growing up seeing my mom being the head and the heart, and my dad being my dad. My mom worked 3 jobs, 7 kids, 2 jobs, and my dad was working, but didn't want to be too transparent. I'm very not a transparent person, but I guess I could be. Watching my mom raising 7 kids, and my older sister helping her do that at a young age, and my daddy coming in drunk, talking, sleeping, watching TV. He saw us but didn't see us. So I don't have that memory of I'm sitting on daddy's lap and saying, Daddy, I'm happy to see you. Or when he walked in the door, I was happy to see him. I don't remember those memories, right? And it's sad because seeing that, and now I have a brother who passed, but I have a living brother now who is now the man he is, and it's just like, I'm his therapist. Like, I'm telling him, treat a woman this way, do this and do that. And he has so much trauma within himself by seeing what he saw, or we all saw growing up, that it's just so hard for him. He's like almost going on 50, and he's by himself in a 4-bedroom house, by himself. And it's like every woman he's with, they never last. Like, he always finds something. I'm like, everybody has faults, even you. You can't, if she breathes wrong or sneezes wrong, she's out, you know what I'm saying? And so, so me being a mom now, seeing my mom go through what she did with my dad was abusive. There was one fight I can remember till like it was yesterday that really stuck to all of us, and we all can sit back down and sit back like, oh my God, remember that fight when he did this? And my brother actually, I think he attacked my dad because the way he just threw my mom like across, and then she fell. And so we seen that all the time. And one day my mom, at some point my mom ended up fighting back. We just seen so much, right? And so my mom was with my dad. They had 7 kids, and they was together for 22 years, and he never married, right? But he got married twice, right? I don't know if he don't have kids in the outside, I don't think. But just to see that now, where I'm at now, I am engaged, and I have a daughter, and my mom always said, when you're with somebody, you see an error, you see something that you don't like, you speak your mind right then and there. Don't let it fester, don't let it carry on because you're in love and you whatever. So I'm a strong believer. When I see something, I'm gonna talk. So my fiance, no, if there's a problem, I'm gonna tell you, we gotta rectify it, you gotta fix it. And sometimes I can come across maybe aggressive or maybe like so whatever, but I do not want to live what I saw growing up.
Right.
And I always said I don't want a man like my father or my brothers, because my brothers, they had many women, or they didn't stay, or they didn't appreciate or love the woman as women should be loved. And so my fiance now, yes, he cooks, he cleans, he helps out. And now that we have a daughter, I ensure that I'm not doing all of it for my daughter, but I make sure that we equally do it. So.
Val?
Right? Just because you said like, hey, you know, you kind of see red flags. Just to let you know, sometimes red flags look like 6 flags, especially when you don't want to be single or you care about that person. So with that being said, I've heard a lot of talk about we have to be the head and heart, and in the Bible it refers to, you know, the man is the head, but the woman but a saying is the man's the head, but the woman's the neck. You can't do anything with your head if you don't have a neck, right? I don't think we have an issue, or we don't want to be, what is the word in the Bible? Submissive.
Submissive.
Jesus. I personally.
Is that a bad word?
No, it's not.
I would love
No.
to be submissive.
It's not. I personally,
If you knew what you was doing.
just like Sandy just said, I would not mind being submissive at all. I definitely want a man to come in and lead me. However, I can only speak, you know, from my experience. A lot of these men out here can't lead, or when you offer them that opportunity,
They're afraid.
they're afraid. They find you intimidating. Just got out of a relationship, vulnerability corner. Just got out of a relationship, and I had to take that step away because what he once found so intriguing about me, like my sense of adventure, my self-efficiency and sufficiency, my independence, he began to kind of treat it as if he was a little jealous. And it's like
It becomes a competition.
It does.
Yeah, and you don't want to
Exactly.
compete with your significant other. Honestly, I want you to lead the way. Like, I would love that, but a lot of times we're put in the position where we have to. And it's so exhausting as a woman, a black woman in particular. It's so exhausting because society consistently wants you to take charge, but in the most docile way. You can't, I'm tired of being strong. Like, let's call a spade a spade. I am tired of having to be strong. I want to, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, I'm using weak as in the most like positive. I want to be vulnerable. I want to be weak. I want to let my guard down. But we're not permitted to do that. We're not, and then, I'm sorry for taking this into this direction, but we're not allowed, not only are we not allowed to do it romantically, but in a lot of spaces, we can't even do it with each other because black women are so crucial of other black women.
Really quickly, I know Whitney talked about dominant, and I have questions about what we mean dominant. My question to us is, sometimes folks see divorce, separation as a failure, and I would often push back around what we deem a failure in our eyes may have been a breakthrough, may have been strength for someone else. And I also think that even dominant, I think specifically for black women, those are like loaded words that are used to describe us. And case in point, I'm in a new position. I know why I'm in a position, because I'm dominant. Because when I say I'm gonna do something, it's gonna get done, right? Because, and not only that, so there's the flip side of Sandra that I also care about people, right? And so like, I'm very, I want to always dig deep in terms of what does dominant mean for folks, so we can like make sure we have the same working definition, but also be very mindful that these are like terms used to define specifically black women. And this is the very reason why they often hire us. This is the very same reason why they like us, they want to marry us, because at the end of the day, we can hold them down romantically and at the job as well.
Very good points. So, this has been a great conversation. Now I gotta kind of shift us to what U-Turn does. Dominic, go ahead.
So what, to me, dominance means, you know, taking charge. To me, it's a masculine trait, in my opinion. And coming from my background, all the women in my family, all of them were masculine. They, you know, they were mothers, some of them were wives, and it just, that didn't, to me, they never had a great outcome. You know, either the men left them, or they worked themselves to sickness, or they just were baby mamas, and it just, because maybe they were just too dominant, I don't know, but I just never saw a soft feminine side from them. I didn't really learn about femininity until I met Shirley. You know, so you can imagine trying to understand who you are, what you're trying to do, and as a teenager or growing up, and you just see women just like yelling, screaming. Like when people start yelling and screaming now, I just leave, because I'm not about to hear a screaming match. So to me, that's how I see dominance. It's a masculine thing for me.
What is male dominance to you? Like, I guess when it comes to the how does dominance differ from what you see in women versus what you see in a man?
That's a good question.
I would say it's more like, I realize with men, when they're in their dominant stage, they're not like as aggressive or yelling or being combative. So for me, when I'm associating it with dominance, for women, it's in my family, they were very combative. Like when my dad would talk to my mom, she would just go off, and she wouldn't listen, and I would just see that in aunts and their relationships, cousins, their relationships, like not trying to listen, very combative, going back and forth. And for me, in dealing with men, even working with them, they were dominant, but they were not like, I would say they kind of like passive with it. They were not as direct, kind of like when you see a cop, like a female cop versus a male cop. Like the female cop feels like she has to be a lot more aggressive, being more dominant, being more masculine, because she's a female, so people not gonna take it serious. So that's just how I see it.
I don't mean to take up so much space, but it just has a lot to do with the work that I do. There is privilege. The ability for us to be soft is a privilege, right? And so, case in point, there's a lady who cleans for Miami Workers Center, and every day I see her, I want to cry. She gets on the bus at 8 o'clock with her child. She has a husband who has a car. She gets on the bus, and sometimes she comes to the job with her child. Because sometimes the person that she can afford to take the godly or to watch a kid has things that come up, and she takes the bus back home. She has another child that's, I think, 4 years old. She has to pick both of them up on the bus. She gets home. She says when her husband gets home, his thought process is, he's worked all day, he doesn't want to do anything. So washing clothes, feeding all the kids, changing all the kids. She says she gets up at 4 o'clock to get people ready so she can start her day over again. Where would she ever get the opportunity to be soft? Like, people would see her, and I often laugh because people talk about, restaurant ladies, like at Haitian restaurants and Jamaican restaurants, and say how mean they are. They've lived a life of deferred dreams. And so I think about, like, don't we think they had dreams? Like, do we think that after 50 years, they thought they would be working at a restaurant, maybe not even getting paid on the table, that they're making $4 or $5? They ain't got a smile for y'all. Yep. They don't have it. They really don't, because it's a lifetime of deferred dreams. And so to me, I'm always like, I'm thoughtful about, she might not have any softness in her, and it's not about me. It's a lifetime of your dreams haven't been met. This is not where you thought you would be. She doesn't have a car. She has children. She's with a man who takes all her money. She's just I'm telling her, you can have an account by yourself, and she's blown away because he goes and get all the little money that we pay her, take it out the account. And I say to her, she's like, you young lady, you will never accept this from a guy. And I say to her all the time, you don't have to either. I'm not telling her to break up with her husband. I'm just saying, at some point, when he gonna think about you?
Right. When are you gonna break the cycle?
And so that is the reason why I just want to remind us that being soft is a privilege that a lot of us have.
It really is.
And listen, and when we do it, people look at us crazy.
Yes.
And especially the people we love, because what do you mean?
And the energy it takes to be
Yes.
soft.
Yes.
The mindfulness it takes to not respond in anger when you know you should.
Yes.
Especially to my point, I think I always said my mom was a don't play that mom. And to understand now, my father was a good father-ish, but he was a Rolling Stone. He was out there in the streets. And my mom was dominant because she was with a guy she could not trust, rely on. So she couldn't play with these kids. She ain't had time for the play, jokes. She was raising 4 girls and she needs to make sure they was okay. Right? And so to me, like as I become older and wiser, I have more sympathy for the ones who I know have lived a life of dreams deferred. We all have dreams.
Yeah.
And at 60 years old, if I'm in that position, I'm like, what the hell happened in life?
Exactly.
Every day, they're haunted by that. And so I just think that even in our families, we'll see it. And they may not have the language to say it, but it's often an opportunity for us to just think about that too.
I think that's a very good point.
Just
Hold on just a minute, Val. I think we've all seen it on social media. There's a post that says they want us to follow, but we need men who can lead. I was brought up in a family of predominantly all guys, right? So I can count on my finger, and I say this all the time, how many women are in my family. And they're really like my age, my cousins. And I think the one thing that was instilled in all of us, and we have pretty successful guys in our family, so these were, and my father is the junior. My dad don't need my mom to cook. My dad pays the bills. But if there's anything, I think about 3 brothers, I don't lost count of how many uncles at this point. And my dad instilled in me, even though they were the decision makers to make it happen, was always provide for yourself so that you can do this world. So that you can make the decisions, right? Because the word, what was coming out, what I was being taught is that the world is changing. So never put yourself in a position where you have to rely on someone else. Not just on a man, just on someone else. Because this world, what I was told by my dad, and I'll never forget, this world is not fair. And if you're expecting that people are gonna take the time to teach you, people are gonna take the time to do for you, that expectation is wrong. So instead of being disappointed, always put yourself in a position where you're ready to do for yourself. So that's how, for me, I guess that's the word dominance. For me, that's why I'm always let's make it happen. I gotta go and make the decision. This happens. It's not that you don't know, but I'm not gonna wait for you to make a decision because I gotta keep going, right? So Val, wrap it up. I gotta go.
Oh, sorry. No, but that's why I really wanted to ask for the terminology or the definitions and how it differed between men and women, because I think as Black women, when we associate dominance, we like a word that you use that kind of hurt was combative, and it's but combative has its own definition. Like I would completely understand if you're like they were a little bit combative, but to say that they combative equated to dominance was something different. And it's like I can't speak to your family. You know your family. However, it's just, to me, for dominance, that definition is just what Shirley said, is someone who is basically the roots of that tree. I'm here and let's get it done. Let's grow these plants, let's grow these fruits. And with men, it's I forget, it's a little list, but it's just like words that typically have a negative connotation, sorry y'all, for women. Aggressive is one. Aggressive, and it's just somebody. Usually, aggressive is one, and usually it's someone that's just self-assured. That's not gonna take no. Emotional, but it's usually someone that can communicate how they're feeling. And I don't think we get that opportunity. And it just goes back to not being able to be soft.
So, they gonna kill me, guys.
I know they're gonna kill you. Just real quick, only because when Wendy was talking,
I got 10 minutes.
I know, 2 seconds.
Sure, we got an hour.
It really kind of brought to me, and I wanted to make sure. I think you're in a great space right now because you're hearing all of these stories, and because of also what you've seen in the past, to be able to take this all in and decide exactly what you really want.
Absolutely.
And one of the things, when I heard you say, I don't want the masculinity, the dominance and all of that stuff, I think what you were missing, what you didn't see, I mean, I've been with my husband for, 19 going on 20 years. It has to be a balance.
Yes.
It's the balance that makes it work. my daughter asks, she'll say, Mom, you guys are so cute, what is it? I said, you know, sweetheart, it's not the love that made it work for us. This may sound silly, it's the like.
Yes, girl.
It's not the love, because you can love someone and you can't be with them.
Yep.
So it's not the love. You have to like each other. And if you like the person that you're with, everything else will fall in place.
Well said. So, Lord, I don't know why I put all of y'all together. But I did say at the beginning, you guys were all handpicked because of who you are, what you do, and the impact you make. The past year or two has been really hard as it relates to our young people. We've seen young people die, and we say nothing. We have seen babies die, and we say nothing. So my question is, and I work more with God, I work more with the boys, but I'm really, as we bring a spotlight, right, a microscope, and we begin to look at the family as a system, because everything we're talking about here, if we were to take the same conversation and put it into a work effect, right, or into the workspace, we would be having similar conversations, right? Black women are seen as aggressive. Black women are seen as this, right? It's similar conversation. You take it into the courtroom. A lot of those same conversations are being had that we're too aggressive with our children. That's why they want to snatch your child away from you. Whatever it is. So these are conversations that we can take and formulate them in different systems, for lack of a better term. The family is the root of, you just said it, we are the tree, right? We are the bearers of the fruits. So our kids are dying. What are we doing about it? And is it what they're seeing at home? Because we've heard a lot. Many of you said, me sitting here, I'm surprised at where I am. And there's a word.
My favorite word.
I was just about to say, Yolanda loved this word. A lot of us here is based on our resilience. Our ability to overcome. So our children that we're losing, and Sandra said this to me maybe a year ago, this was before she was even in this position, and she said, Shirley, there needs to be a conversation about why Black women are burying their babies. So that's what we're gonna end with. Why are we burying our babies? And each of you sitting here, some way, somehow, is connected to either a woman, is connected to a child, is connected to programming. What do we do? Listening to all of us today, I'm asking, the dysfunction that has become the family, is that what our children are seeing and that's what we're passing on? The resiliency that we have, is that not bright enough? No. So again, I'm happy, Sandy, you're saying no. And with an 18-year-old son, we need to identify what's the problem. Why are our, because, and I say this every day, a 13-year-old boy don't get up and say, I'm gonna shoot Sandra. Right. It doesn't happen that way. Something happened, something clicked, something is broken, there's a backstory somewhere. All of y'all just sat here, just became vulnerable with your own backstories. Can we honestly say that our children are equipped to deal with some of these same backstories? So I guess my question is, Black women, we done talked about Black women in love and self, Black women and how we love in relationships. All of you sitting here serving the community. So clearly, and I think Sandra referenced it quite a bit, the fact that she believes in being there for her people. So we love community, but what are we doing about our children? And why the hell are we burying so many of our Black boys and girls at young ages? So I'm gonna go to Sandy.
I always like to preface that I'm speaking from my experience and from what I've experienced with my son, who's 19, freshman in college. Andrew is not, he's gonna be so mad, but it is what it is. Andrew is not as resilient as I am. He's not. First, he's not because he didn't grow up in Brooklyn with a mom with 2 jobs and who also went to school, who took the bus, and who went through snow, sleet, and fall. Like, I watched my mother go through that experience with me, and I watched her be resilient, taught me to be resilient. My son's issues are different because my mom made those sacrifices for me. He went to the best public schools in Broward. He had a car when he was 16. He went to American Heritage private prep school. He didn't see me. My struggles were not at the level of my mom. So I just don't think his experiences have made him strong enough. And then also society and all this social media has made that whole notion. I remember my mother used to always say, I had to have instant gratification. My son is 10 times worse in terms of how he thinks he perceives life and how and what he thinks, the amount of work he thinks it takes to get something. So when he asked me for a Hermes belt that cost $550, and I tell him, okay, look at my pay stub, and do you see how much I make per hour? So now you tell me how many hours I gotta work for you to wear this Hermes belt. End of conversation. Mama not working all them hours so you can wear a Hermes belt. All that to say is, like, I feel like the kids now, they're at least for those of us who worked so that they could have these better things in life, but yet they're seeing all the ratchetness in the world, and they're not making that correlation. At least my son isn't sometimes. Like, I have to tell him, I have to call him and say, just to bring it back to real world, Andrew, I don't want to see you in South Beach. If the GPS goes off and I see you go south of Flagler, there's going to be a problem. I'm going to shut the car down.
See, that's the mom with the, I love with moms. You know,
Oh no, you got to get with the technology to shut these kids down. And he was like, why? You're so bougie. You're so this, you're so that. And I said, Drew, why put yourself in a position to be associated with a group of people who are not doing what they're supposed to be doing? They're just college kids having fun. Them kids ain't in nobody's college. Them kids are in nobody's college. For all types of craziness. All this to say, these kids, I don't think these days dissect information the way we do, have the same sense of urgency that we do. I couldn't make my mother want. I think we're all Haitian, right? I couldn't embarrass my mother. God forbid. He doesn't think that way. And I think many of our kids don't think that way. And they're dying because there isn't that fear, that sense of, I could die. That sense of, I owe my family, I owe my ancestors before me to do better. Because they live in a good life.
So where do we go wrong?
Hold on, wait a minute. Go ahead.
Oh.
So me and you got an argument over this. So I'm gonna just put it out there. When we had this conversation previously, I deal with kids, like I said, at risk. So I've dealt with a lot of kids' deaths recently within my program. And my answer from my experience is accountability on everybody, not just our kids, because and I think this is what irks me. Not saying you irk me, not saying like that.
No, I get it.
We often say the kids, but at the end of the day, if we're aware that they're growing up in a different society from us, when are we taking ourselves off the high horse to meet them halfway and see what that bridge looks like? Oftentimes we're overcompensating. I know I do it, because we didn't have it, so we like, okay, our kids gotta have it, but then what are we teaching them? So we argued a little bit about the word accountability, but I think accountability and what it would look like when we define it would be able to answer that question.
So I'm big, and Daphne, you can take over, right? I'm big on the mutual accountability, because I think that's why we're having this conversation. I want to be able for us to hold each other in our own communities accountable, so that folks don't constantly say, so when is your community gonna do something? Right? When black kids are dying in your community, why y'all not having this? Where's the same, energy? I want to be able
What's
to
the
walk
something
in.
though, Shirley?
Huh?
We always talk, when's your community gonna do something? Because I feel like at 19, all you can do is talk to a child. Talk.
At 19.
Yeah,
right.
But when they say, when is your community going to do something? What is the something?
And I have the great response. While y'all are working their parents to death, you want to ask us what we gonna do? You won't raise the minimum wage so that people can have access, so they can work one job and come home and be with their kids? The difference is, Sandy, and I'm sorry for intervening, but the difference is, my mom was home at 3, honey. My mom was with us, and she was on us like white on rice. So there was, I don't know that it was fear, but it was like intentionality that I know even good kids can get in trouble.
Yeah.
And because good kids can get in trouble, I need to watch these kids. I need to know what they up to. Talking on the phone, what? My mom was breathing heavy on the phone. Who are you talking to? Who are your friends? Who are their parents?
Yeah. You can go to somebody's house if your mom didn't know her mom or their mom. No.
But what if you can't do it? What if there's no resources? What if there's multiple kids? sorry, I don't mean.
No problem. Y'all got 10 minutes.
Then you
before
have
the
to-
committee.
that's the community that I think.
But so it comes back to the original question, right? As a community, not just us in here, but the overall community.
Let me go to Monica's point. One of the things I love about Haitian culture, and I tell people, don't forget who we are. If I go to Port-au-Prince right now where my parents are from, everybody knows me. Not because I'm always in Port-au-Prince, because they know my family, right? Communities, black communities, you know this too. This is who we are. We don't live far from each other. We used to know each other.
But we don't anymore.
And that is the problem, because
Community
if
is
you're
gone.
busy, you ain't never talk to your neighbors.
No.
Your neighbors will never give your kids free spots.
Nope.
You never play race in the streets. Like, we have to hold on to what we know works. If I was not home and my mom, the neighbor would tell my mom that we were late coming home because they knew each other. And so I think we can't get so sedity that we left what we know is hood, but actually the hood has assets. It's the understanding that relationships matter. That this is not just my kids, it's your kids. Your kids are my kids too.
But you hit the nail on the head, relationships. It's not just relationships with adults and with our kids, and with the kids don't know how to have healthy relationships either, because A, they haven't seen them because mom and dad are too busy.
Point exactly.
Yes.
You know, we're spending all this time in school. Why aren't they teaching kids how to have healthy relationships? There's curriculum out there.
That's right.
There's skills that can be practiced and mirrored and role played and all kinds of things on how to have a healthy argument, how to have a healthy male-female or female-female or whatever your relationship is. Why isn't that being taught too? That's the new thing. That's the new depletion that our kids are dealing with. There are no relationships.
No
Because we
social
don't have
skills.
relationships with each other, and we don't have relationships within our
Hold
community.
on, Daphne.
I probably lost my thought. No, but it's all good. It's good stuff that I'm hearing. But I think after what Sandy, Sandy had mentioned, like all the things that we knew worked for us. Why can't we then instill it in these kids? Because it's like we can tell them to do those things, right? We know what works for us. Why can't we do it to them, for them, or to them, to not lose them or have them go astray? You know what I'm saying? One thing she said, like when I first moved into my neighbor in my house, I told my fiance, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna meet the neighbors, and he just flipped, like he just thought it was just like the weirdest thing. I'm like, when you was in Haiti, you didn't know the people, you know. But I said, I want to know my neighbors just in case something happened. I'm new to the block, and now me and the neighbor across the street, we got each other's numbers. She calls me when I cook. I send her some food. You know,
Such a Haitian.
but I mean, she's American, but I think knowing the community and knowing that and knowing what worked for me, like my mom was on us like Ride on Rice too. I couldn't go, like I'm one of those, I mean, whatever. I'm one of those kids that my mama said not to go or order release, go to the beach. I would not go. I don't care. If she was at work, I was always afraid that somebody gonna see her, somebody gonna know me.
We were from the church. We know
So,
that. Everybody
but I knew that worked for me, and it was that fear that I knew that I was gonna get in trouble. So now, my sister who has 5 boys, I'm an auntie of 19 nieces and nephews. So but we together, my daughter makes 20, but we together be accountable. Like if my nephew does something or something act up in school, we calling them. We going to that house and we knocking upside his head. I don't care if his sister there, my sister there. We doing it. We keeping each other accountable so that they don't fall into the streets or find themselves into drugs or be racial profile, whatever. Great that they're in college, they're in school. 2 of them had a full scholarship in school, but we keep each other accountable. And so we knew what worked for us. My mama raised 7 kids, and she was hardcore, strong on us, and we became who we are because of her. So I think with me and us knowing that, we're now then dropping those same gems into our nieces and nephews so that they don't fall into the cracks.
If I may.
Let me say, they're giving me all types of looks in the back, so I need y'all to kind of let's wrap this up. Kendi is dying, the guys are dying.
Just real quick, Shirley, I think all of us here are fortunate enough, I think, to live in areas where our children are safe, and not everybody has that privilege. But going back to you and the work that you do, and when you talk about children that are dying because you are seeing that on a daily basis, from my purview, I think what's missing is the outrage. There's a different level of outrage, and this may not be a popular sentiment, but if we see someone, talk about George Floyd, right? That was absolutely well-deserved outrage. But I don't see anything near that level of outrage when our children are getting shot. It doesn't make the news to that point. It's almost as if, 3
Another
kids
black
died
kid.
today.
That community again.
And then
We're
move on.
desensitized.
It's a level, yes,
Mhm.
we've become desensitized for it. It's the level of outrage. I don't see it.
Okay, Val, I'm gonna take 3 more comments and then we're gonna wrap it up. Val.
We're gonna take 10 comments.
No, Mackenzie gonna kill me.
You'll be all right.
What I'm hearing kind of goes back to what she said earlier about we're trying to superimpose our beliefs, so from the African diaspora onto Western, I forget the word. Culture.
Civilization.
Yeah.
All that.
So when you get Western, it's like, let me protect my family, let me worry about my family first. But if you go anywhere like a overwhelmingly black country, it's a whole, like, this is my tribe, I gotta make sure the tribe is good. And we don't have that anymore. Like, we're literally super for self. Whereas, and I think it's coming from, it's a reflection of after the civil rights movement where, civil rights came in, we got a seat at a certain tables, and no longer were we fighting that same mission together. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong, y'all, but this is just a theory, a working theory. So when we stop fighting for one thing together, that's when we started, kind of getting, okay, community, well, my door's shut, what happens behind my doors is my doors. You make sure that your kid is okay, and so on. And I'm not saying that it happened immediately after, because no, I come from a very...
That's the assimilation of America, right?
Exactly.
You take on that nucleus family idea when you come from a larger surrounding community, or your culture is a larger surrounding community.
Exactly.
And I think we also need to be very honest that there's a privilege perspective that we can't do away with, right? So many of us that are sitting here are pretty successful women,
Yes.
right? Degrees, we have really good jobs, so many of us will pull up into our homes, we lock our, many of us pull into our communities, the gate closes behind us, and whatever's happened, I'm safe. So I don't remember coming from Little Haiti, because I don't drive through Little Haiti no more. I don't remember, Liberty City or Brownsville, because, they still doing that down there? Because I don't drive there anymore, right? So I think there is a privilege level too that we're seeing in the community. Once we make it,
Yes.
we don't feel the need to go back and bring someone else along the way. And, Lionel, I'd like you to share, because you're still working in this community with many of these same boys before we close out. Oh,
I'm gonna go after him.
okay.
No, as a young man, if I'm gonna channel being a young man, if what you guys describe versus my reality, so if I have a certain reality and you was raised with that fantasy, you understand? Then you're gonna find a lot of kids probably value what you had more, and if you say what you had was worth more than what you're giving me, then guess what? That's gonna make me worth less. And if I'm worth less, I think Tupac said it good in that movie with Juice. I don't care about me. And what make you think I care more about you? And so that just to give you a mind, just a glimpse into the mindset if you really want to know the mind of these guys. Because I grew up with a lot of these guys. And I'm not gonna lie, I did. I might have been one of these guys. So I do understand the mindset, but I'm looking on 20, 25 years on the other side of it. So I can articulate it better. Put me on the other 25 years of that. I'm them. And so that's pretty much what I'm saying. I'm taking more time.
Bertha?
Okay, so I'm gonna be honest. We just got to the meat of the conversation, so I don't wanna necessarily end here. I feel like maybe we could wait another 15 minutes. We got time. Like, we legit got time. This is why we here, right? So we black. We not gonna wait on time anyway.
People are watching it on what's that thing, on Facebook Live. They gonna get on.
Okay, all right. So, okay, all right. So the point I wanted to make was, let's go back to your question. What do we do? Where do we spend most of our time? We're at church all the time. What is the church's responsibility in community and not just ministry? Okay? Because ministry goes beyond family day, right? Where people come up with their kids and they're singing or whatever. It goes beyond that. What is the church has to intervene and work with some of these U-turn. You know what I mean? Like I think the church has a certain responsibility that I also think we have to hold them accountable. And I don't think that I think we've mentioned this numerous times, but we really need to kind of flesh out what that looks like.
But the church also needs to understand, and then I'm gonna go to Sandy and then Yolanda, because Sandra and the church. The church also needs to understand that its mere existence needs to be more than the tithing and the offering. Its mere existence also needs to be more than just telling people, don't worry about going to the professional because we're gonna fast our way out of it.
Thank you, because that was gonna be my next point. Now, I believe in Jesus. I grew up in the church. I grew up super religious. I love it. It's all good. But there is a difference between, there's a difference, the but, it was a but. There's a difference between being heavenly minded and like living in reality.
But the Bible said you can't be too heavenly, too
earthly.
Right, too heavenly good, not earthly good. Too heavenly minded, spiritually minded, not earthly good.
No earthly good.
Exactly, but at the same time, that's not what we see. There's always this, Jesus is gonna take my burdens away, or Jesus is gonna come save me, or I'm gonna pray this away, I'm gonna fast this away. Like,
and the burdens are still here.
They're still here. Like my thing is, there are some things, like, let's be honest, some pastors, they give you 6 sessions, after that, you don't have enough faith in God, right? They give you 6 sessions. After the 6 sessions, they be like, you know what? Like, you need to go ahead and, lay this at the altar, whatever. But what happens is we're laying at the altar for 20 years. That same pastor needs to tell this person that, hey, you might need to tap into some community resources to help meet the needs that I can't meet. If let's just say, like, okay, you don't have the resources at church, there needs to be some type of intervention or some type of ministry that helps to connect the issues of the community to the resources outside. And there needs to be a continuous, I don't know if it's every month, every quarter, but there needs to be some type of forum like this where we're talking about the needs of our community on a regular basis. That's my suggestion, but I don't know everything.
Sandy, thank you, Bertha.
No, it's just as soon as we start talking about the burdens of families and then we refer to the church, it always strikes weird to me because I thought the church was supposed to be families together. So to me, the church is supposed to be a reflection of those families. So if the families are discombobulated, I just don't understand why people are confused that the church is discombobulated. I mean, that's what church was always for my family. And mind you, I'm Catholic, and a lot of Christians don't see Catholics as true Christians. But even in the Catholic churches I belonged to in my youth, the church always, if the old ladies at the church were into whatever, if crafting was a thing, then the church was crafting. Whatever the issue was that were going on in the local families, you would see a reflection of that in the churches. And I feel like the churches it's becoming just like social media. It's just an activity. It's just an event. It's no longer a gathering place for the community. It's now just another activity. So that's why I don't feel like that is the place to resolve. We can't afford to wait for the church to resolve our family issues.
So I'm gonna do Yolanda. Well said. Mel, and then Sandra. We're gonna close out with
a couple of things. Okay, so the church has united, and there's a faith-based community thing going where they are out in the community. Which, what is telling me there's a gap if everyone doesn't know that. That's number one. Number two, it goes back to what I originally said: accountability. Once again, we're putting it on the church per se instead of us addressing what we can do different within our respective organizations, roles in society, and I'm gonna just leave it there.
Great point.
So, raising my son, he couldn't close the door in my house. I know exactly what you're watching. I know exactly your friends. I know exactly who you're on the phone with. I was that nosy parent. I was in your business, right? And so when you look at kids, and I'm going to say in Liberty City or Brownsville or whatever, it's a totally different scenario than my house. Because now you're talking about generational stuff. Okay, and so I hear y'all bringing the church and this and that or whatever, but you need more than the church to go into that community to help that community. It needs so much help that you don't really even know where to start.
The layers.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's financial, it's educational, it's spiritual, and so where do you start to help? You work with those young men, but it's more than them. It goes back to the parents. It goes back to the grandparents, and it needs some healing and some lessons taught to break, you know, that
cycle.
Exactly, that cycle. So we can sit here and say, yeah, the church should do this and blah, 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 blah. That's cologne to me. We need to go inside, you know, those communities and really get what they need.
Well, I can tell you, as someone who did research for, you know, what do these communities need? A living wage goes a long way. Enough money to meet your needs goes a long way. I remember having a fight inside of a particular funding organization because they were trying to figure out exactly what pot of money they were going to put out for grant writing. And it was a fight to get summer jobs for teenagers. Oh, well, you know, all this hemming and hawing. Put the money in the people's hands. Stop putting the money in everybody else's hands but the people that need it. If the people had all the billions of dollars that are allocated for all of these programs here and there, you gotta put the money in the hands of the people. When people have the money that they need, they actually do make good, solid, sound decisions. When they don't have the money that they need, that's when they make compromising decisions. That's a place to start. But we don't want to have that conversation because then some people are going to have to come up off their coins, and that's a problem.
And so I done got cussed out both times.
Water off your back.
Busy people, what they say, idle mind is a devil's playground. So people have jobs, people have income. Y'all busy. You got stuff to do. You dating fancy women. You got to take them out on dates. Like, you're busy, and I think a lot of us don't acknowledge that. Some have jobs, they can't get jobs, records, all that stuff. But my point that I really wanted to make, that was just a response to Monica, is like, we gotta get back to fundamentals. A lot of the crimes that we're seeing, why it's lacking the outrage, people know what's happening. Drug deals gone bad. And black communities used to have, like, your kids are off limits.
Yeah, kids and
your parent, your mom house was off limits. And now we've gone so far, like, you know, look, I'm not a part of the drug world, I'll support that. And I know people, friends of mine who've done time. There were limits that you would not cross. There were lines you would not cross. And so what we're seeing in our communities, y'all care about people's lives, even the most vulnerable, which is the elderly and the kids. And so to me, these are not random acts. I always say, look, the community know what's happening. This is gang violence, drug wars that are happening in our community. I'm asking, I think there needs to be a recommitment to kids gotta be off limits, y'all. If y'all don't respect each other, at least people's kids.
They don't respect themselves, so it's
I
get that, and that's not how it always used to be.
That's true.
People's kids and parents. Remember my guy friend, his house got shot up growing up. They were ticked at the person who did it because that's off limits. You crossed the line. And I'm not saying we're okaying violence. We're saying that.
But there's no more lines.
You gotta have lines to this. I ain't make the rules, y'all. You know, no violence, no drugs.
We gonna wrap up. She said no violence.
It's actually a question, so maybe after the response would be a wrap up. But my question would be, what if it's kids on kids?
That's exactly what it is.
They don't value their lives. They don't value themselves.
It is kids on kids.
But even then, they have boundaries.
But even then, in the past, gang members had boundaries. Right, where many of us who work in gangs, right, you knew this. You knew that's his home, you know, that's his house. That's his little sister, his little brother. If you gonna go, wait for him, but you know, hands off the others. There were spaces, right? You can do your stuff on that side, but on this side, you gonna respect it. But all that has gone out the window completely. And I think that is why we're having these conversations, right? We need to hold each other accountable. because no one else is going to do it for us. And the more we sit around expecting the cavalry to come, it's not coming. So we can, under U-Turn's hat, we can continue to train. We're gonna do our job. We're gonna train the educators, we're gonna train the police to, to treat our people different and, empathize and respect equity. We're gonna do all that. But then there's a responsibility that befalls upon us as a community, like Sandra says. We know what's happening. We can't pretend we don't know what's happening. Because even in the string of violence that happened at the beginning of this year, one shooting led to 10 others. So you know that it's retaliatory, right? So we have to get to a point where we stop pointing the fingers and say, okay, if it's the value systems, then that's something we need to readapt. If it's the church that's missing, then we need to address this. If it's the living wage, this is where the impact that all of us in each of our respective fields, this is where we begin to hold each other accountable. Because at the end of the day, U-Turn can't do it all. Miami Workers Center can't do it all, right? And the different entities that are sitting at the table, so I don't call people's jobs out, they can't do it all. But if collectively we have the same vision and the same mission and say, okay, Sandra, you're gonna push for, raising the minimum wage because you understand how that impacts black women. Lionel, you're gonna push on making sure these boys get their GEDs and they're doing this, they're doing that. Yolanda, you're gonna keep pushing to make sure they pass the GED, that we're getting them some job. Collectively then, we begin to move the needle. But otherwise, we're gonna continue to have these conversations and they go nowhere. Okay, and then saving our youth symposium, we're gonna hold politicians accountable. Because remember that violence is a financial thing. Okay?
Show me the budget.
As long as there are people who make money off the violence in our community. So until we begin to hold not just the communities, not just the institutions, but the people we put in office, this is all a waste of our time. So I thank all of y'all for being here. Lionel, any final words?
I know you ladies are wonderful. What really I'm gonna start out, what makes you guys, or you ladies rather, what truly makes you great and resilient, to your point, is your ability to turn embarrassment into empowerment. So thank you.
Ladies, I love y'all. This will not be the last of the invitations. We will continue to have these conversations because out of this, we build relationships. Out of this, we empower one another. Out of this, we begin to stop the crab in the bucket mentality because it's killing our communities. I love y'all. I thank y'all for what y'all do. I thank you for how much you pour into your communities, into your families. But the one thing I want to leave us with, we got to do better taking care of one another and taking care of self. Thank you to everybody that's watching. Thank you for another episode. Thank you for watching another episode of The Turning Point. We hope you'll join us next month. Y'all have a good one. Thank you.